Joining us live right now, Athletic Director, San Diego State, J.D. Wicker. And J.D., thanks so much for coming on. We really appreciate it as this story continues to twist and turn. In fact, you may have even just heard while you were sitting there on hold comments that were made yesterday by the president of the Past Presidents Association with San Diego State, saying that this is a land grab, never worked for San Diego. Second I read it, I knew it was bad. And it's interesting because that's kind of the tone right now. But my question is, if that's the case, the first second you look at it, it's a bad deal for San Diego State, then why did San Diego State hold conversations with them for 2 years and on a number of occasions have a verbal agreement?
Well, first, Mark and Rich, good afternoon, and appreciate the opportunity to be on the show and the home of Aztec sports.
Yes, indeed. Thank you for coming on.
Again, it's one of those things that we did. We had, discussions for close to 2 years, and, the initiative is 3,200 pages long, and until the initiative was actually printed, we didn't see the initiative in totality, so we weren't exactly sure what was going to come out of the initiative. So, we took our time and read it, and, like Mara Elliott, the city attorney, came out with yesterday, there were definitely some things in there that presented issues.
And not having that final look at the initiative before it was presented, would you describe that as the most major of all sticking points between negotiations between you and FS Investors?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for us was, one, the expandability of the stadium and some issues that when I arrived on campus brought forward immediately as far as, office buildings basically sitting in the end zone of the stadium and ability to expand because of that. And then where the university was in all of this and the ability to grow the university in Mission Valley. And, our vision is that the growth of San Diego State is important to the city of San Diego.
J.D. Wicker, San Diego State Athletic Director, joining us, Mark and Rich. J.D., I'll admit that one thing I've learned in the last 24 hours is that the idea of expanding the stadium, while Soccer City folks have agreed to that in the fine print it said, when you're ready to do that, in theory, you would need MLS approval. That doesn't sound like that should be. We talked to Nick Stone about it an hour ago. He seemed to defend it. Is that a major issue for you, I would assume?
Yes, it's definitely a significant issue for us. We shouldn't have to ask anyone's permission to continue the growth of San Diego State University and San Diego State football. And, I think it's something important to note that, MLS wants a 22,000-seat stadium, and, they're getting a 32,000-seat stadium, so they have plenty of room to grow, and, not that they may need it if soccer is truly as popular as is being purported. But if we want to expand for what's best for San Diego State football and San Diego State athletics, we're having to ask third parties whether we can do that or not. So that is a huge issue for us.
Also noted by FS Investors, Nick Stone, when he talked to us, the fact that he believes there's documents that show they adhered to verbal agreements as words were put on paper, and it was, in fact, San Diego State's side that changed, or positions that changed. Is there any validity to that claim?
I don't believe so. Obviously, it's when you're making verbal agreements and not everyone is in the room when that verbal agreement is happening. Are you playing games of telephone? But, there were definitely items that we discussed that when they showed up on paper were not what my understanding was of what we had discussed, and they had been changed.
JD, listen, a lot of people have guessed behind the scenes that you guys wouldn't walk away from something like this unless you had another plan kind of set up. You've said a number of times, look, we've made a request for proposal. We're looking for a partner. We don't have anything yet. With that said, what kind of a shot clock have you guys put on yourselves? Because if you don't have another plan, this FS thing could pass in November if there's a special election, and then you lose all your leverage.
Yeah, I think the biggest first step is figuring out over the next couple of weeks, one, will there even be a special election is, something that doesn't get covered a lot. We discussed convention center expansion. However, we've talked with a lot of folks out there that have interest in the development of Mission Valley, but they want to understand the parameters of what the city would want to see from that, and it would be important that the city council, outline what those are. And I think if we see the city council outline in an RFP form or some other form, developers will come forward with plans that I think would be beneficial to San Diego State, would be beneficial to the city of San Diego as a whole.
How would you respond to people describing this position, this backing away from the negotiating table, as flighty, as too strong of a maneuver to pull, where there doesn't seem to be an apparent or at least a public plan B as it stands for San Diego State?
I think the most important thing is we've spent almost 2 years discussing, and the time to act is now if we can't arrive at a plan with FS and with the mayor. You can only talk about the same thing for so long before you need to move on and do something else. And knowing that there could potentially be an election in November, we needed to move now to get the next plan, out there. And our hope is that, we'll have some understanding from the city council of what they would want to see in Mission Valley, and we can develop from there.
J.D. Wicker, Athletic Director, San Diego State. J.D., before you run, I want to give you the opportunity to kind of reset where things stand right now. You've said so many times we're moving on, but this news that's come out over the last 24 hours that you guys had all these verbal agreements in place, it seems like you were so close. If you were that close, how come those finer points can't still be talked out?
Yeah, I think the biggest part of it is that, we each have a different vision for Mission Valley. Soccer City, FS Investors wants to bring an MLS program to San Diego and develop the property to pay for the soccer program. We envision higher education in San Diego State's expansion in Mission Valley is the most important part of that, and a multi-use stadium is a close second for the Aztecs to play in, and we welcome an MLS program being there with us along with a river park. I think when you get to the end of the day, 35 acres for San Diego State to expand its campus over time is the difference. That's the difference in our vision.
JD, on short notice, we really appreciate you jumping on today to answer those questions.
All right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it much. Go Aztecs.